Going into this, my comeback PR was 18:01 for the 5K. So this has a big flaw. This 1 second, or let's say 2 seconds to get to sub 18. So I set up a goal to run sub 18. But the story is a bit longer than just my recent comeback. It started like 15 years ago when I ran a 10K in 36:18, which is my current personal best. And there I passed the 5K mark at around 18 minutes. So back then I already thought I should be capable of running sub 18. However, I never did it. Now I'm 42 years old. Back then I was 26. Now I have 2 kids, aged 3 and 5. Back then I was a free man, basically. So I had a much better chance to do it back then. Why didn't I do it? Got injured, basically. I had a hip injury, which was quite mysterious. Doctors and scan couldn't find anything, but I had severe pain running, so I had to stop running for almost a year. And within that year, more things happened. So I moved places. I had new situation where I couldn't run to work anymore. Before I ran as a way to commute, so I ran twice a day and had a lot of running opportunities, had nice paths around my area, nice roads. And then I moved. After the move, my one-way commute was 15 kilometers. Before it was like 3 kilometers. And 15 kilometers when coming back from an injury is quite a lot. So I looked for other ways to release energy. So as I was still injured, I had to rehab my injury, and often with rehab you start strength training, and this is where I stuck in the end. I also wanted to improve my flexibility. I first looked into gymnastics, but there were no clubs for adults, or at least it didn't appear to me that they cater adults. So I looked further and found weightlifting. Weightlifters have, at least in the elite field, have good flexibility and a good amount of strength as well. So I started weightlifting, did that for maybe 12 years, but I wasn't really suited for that. In the end, I got a 102 kilogram snatch and a 125 kilogram clean and jerk. But I still think I lack fast twitch muscle fibers, which is required for weightlifting. Weightlifting came into a more or less abrupt halt when the COVID-19 pandemic started. This is also the time when my first child was born. So I became, first of all, a time-poor parent, and second of all the weightlifting facilities were closed down, or you had very limited training times, which wasn't fun at all. So I started strength training at home, which was more like powerlifting focused. So I did it for like 4 or 5 years. And towards the end, I also did a few competitions. In powerlifting, I got like a 230 kilogram squat, a 127 kilogram bench press, and a 275 kilogram deadlift. I think I was more suited for powerlifting. At least in my mind, the numbers were slightly better. Not too extraordinary, but better. However, in powerlifting, I didn't like the mentality or the powerlifting culture. I mean, it isn't bad, the people are very supportive of each other, but in the competitions it's more about gaming the rules instead of giving your all. people try to game the rules as much as possible by, for example, restricting the range of motion or finding clothes that helps them lift instead of lifting by yourself. Other things I didn't like about powerlifting, it's that the competition itself are very expensive. You need to join a club, which is fairly expensive compared to other clubs in Germany. And you practically only join the club to join competitions, but pay the full fee. Powerlifting as well as weightlifting is a very niche sport, so all the competitors get divided into weight classes, which makes you have less competition. But since it's niche, there are already very little competitors, so in the end everyone gets a medal. And a very big factor was I had to train alone in my basement with no windows, so it was quite a mental challenge. You know, you have beautiful sunlight outside, but you are somehow bound to your windowless cave. This is totally different in running. You run outside most of the time, so you get the sunlight. Competitions are fairly cheap and you have a lot of competitors. So this appeals more to me because then you get real results. After the COVID restrictions have been lifted, I tried commercial gyms with childcare. However, in the end, it was too much commute time, and also my children didn't like the childcare that much, and it was kind of a struggle to get them there. So I was back at the basement, where at least I had no commute time. Also, I moved places again, and it was possible for me to get to work with running a fairly short distance. This time it's the minimum commute is 2 kilometers, so which helped me making my comeback into running. After the strength training years, my body weight was around 100 kilogram at 187 centimeters of height. So I was quite heavy to start running again, and at the beginning it also was quite hard. And from the powerlifting, you are rather stiff, so I felt like a tin man when running. I couldn't really move my upper body easily. So it was quite a challenge to run these 2 kilometers twice a day. Also at the beginning I got a lot of injuries, a lot of blisters and other smaller or not so small niggles, but I think this was to be expected since I didn't run for 10 plus years. At first I continued to do powerlifting training since I was only able to run 2 kilometers. So even though I was slow and only ran 2 kilometers, it was too little training time in my mind, so I continued the powerlifting training. However, the running severely affected the powerlifting training from the beginning. My powerlifting numbers decreased quite fast. I think this was just because of the energy expenditure for running, so there was not much energy or less energy left for lifting. At the same time, I also did a calorie restriction diet, and after 6 months I reduced my body weight from 100 kilogram to about 84 kilogram, which is still my current body weight. Even with the calorie restriction and some injuries, I managed to run around 40 minutes for the 10K after 6 months. Well, in the beginning it was more like 41 minutes, but the time kept getting better fairly quickly, at least in the first 6 months. After about a year, I did a 5K race, so it was more like 5.5, and the 5 km transition time was 18:01. So this is where the challenge came from, to run sub 18, since I didn't made it in a real race. So I tried 2 attempts before this attempt solo. One attempt was 18:08 on a gravel road, and the second was 18:18 on the same track. So this is my 3rd attempt. All attempts that I did solo were out of training, so without a taper, as an extra challenge. For the first 2 attempts I did it in long clothes, but this time I decided to go for shorts, since I had to change something to get faster. However, this is not too comfortable, since this was in winter time, so we had 0 degrees Celsius, so it was quite cold. Why is the camera angle so bad? I didn't want to run with a tiny camera strapped to my head, and I'm a tempo parent, so I run from door to door. So I ran from my home to the track, and I didn't want to carry too much stuff with me. And from my door to the track it's about 5 kilometers, so it's quite a long way, so I didn't want to carry too much stuff. Also, this leads me to my shoe choice. I chose the Adidas Pro 4, since the length of the run was in total 18 kilometers. So if I would drive to a race, I would probably use the Takumi Zen 11, since they are lighter than the Pro 4s. The pacing strategy for all my 5K sub 18 attempts was to run even paces from start to finish, so about 3:35 per kilometer from start to finish. To help me get the pacing right, I had a Stride Footpod, this little thing, and the Ango glasses, which are glasses with a heads-up display. Maybe you can see the tiny electronics here. So what I do with the Stride Footpod does give you running power and fairly accurate pace data. So depending on the weather conditions and the buildings and so on, Stride gives very reliable data, and it doesn't depend on weather and buildings compared to GPS. And the Ango glasses, they give you a heads-up display, so you have the numbers inside in your field of view, somewhere in front of your eye, so like somewhere in the middle of your field of view. And I had displayed running power, pace and average pace. And with that you get a significant help to get pacing right. So if you would check the watch every now and then, you can fluctuate big time. And since I had no competitors, no pacemakers, I had to rely on myself to get pacing right. So this is where these tools are very handy. And looking back on the numbers of the run, I think I paced it fairly well. That's it. Only there are slight spikes when I overtake this group of runners that showed up sometimes into the run. Here you see them just passing by. At the end there will also be data from Runalyze for all 400 meter splits and also for the kilometer splits, and there you will see it's very evenly paced. Since I'm talking about accuracy, you will have noticed that the Runalyze data that I overlaid will come earlier and earlier, not at the place where I started, but a few seconds earlier. And that could probably be explained by, first of all, I probably didn't run on the ideal line. So the ideal line is from the inside of the 400-meter loop 30 centimeters in. Maybe I ran a bit more outside of that, so like 30 centimeters will add about 2 meters per lap. And second of all, probably my stride footpod is not as accurate as I wish it would be. But anyway, in the end I ran 5 kilometers, maybe 100 meters more, maybe not, we will not know. But I oriented my overlays at the time, not the distance, since I don't know exactly where the correct distance is, but at least I assume the time is quite accurate. So, did my strength training background help me to run the 18 minutes again at age 42? I guess not, but I think the discipline that I had for strength training also carries over to some degree to running. Does being able to run 5 kilometers in under 18 minutes help you in your life in any way? I guess not, but it's a nice way to tell yourself that you can achieve something that you set your mind to. Also, in my mind, I find running quite relaxing and quite peaceful, and it is an activity I can enjoy very much, since I can also do it outside in nature. So what is left for me? I think I still have the big goal of beating my old 10 kilometer personal best of 36 minutes and 18 seconds. This will be quite a challenge, since I don't think I will be able to get down to the body weight that I had back then, so I have to achieve it with a much heavier body. Will there be something else on this channel in the future? I don't know. This is more a small project to challenge myself, to try stuff, to try talking to the camera. And from what I see, I have to improve a lot. I hope you could watch it anyway, so I wish you a very nice day.